Imagine waking up in a world at war. Cities reduced to rubble. Entire nations fighting for survival. Millions of soldiers marching into battle, never to return home. Between 1939 and 1945, the world witnessed the deadliest conflict in human history, World War II. A war that spanned 6 continents, involved more than 100 million people, and claimed the lives of over 50 million men, women, and children. But how did humanity descend into such unimaginable destruction? And how did this war reshape the modern world? This is the story of World War II. The roots of World War II can be traced back to the aftermath of World War I. Germany had been defeated and forced to accept the harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles. The nation faced economic collapse, political instability, and widespread humiliation. Amid this chaos emerged a man who promised to restore Germany's former glory. His name was Adolf Hitler. In 1933, Hitler became Chancellor of Germany. He rapidly expanded the military, violated international agreements, and promoted an aggressive vision of territorial expansion. Many world leaders hoped diplomacy would prevent another war. They were wrong. On September 1, 1939, Germany invaded Poland using a new military strategy known as Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War. German tanks, aircraft, and infantry overwhelmed Polish defenses with shocking speed. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war on Germany. World War II had begun. Germany was not alone. Hitler formed alliances with Fascist Italy under Benito Mussolini and Imperial Japan. Together, they became known as the Axis powers. In the early years of the war, Axis victories seemed unstoppable. Germany conquered Denmark, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, and France. Within weeks, one of Europe's strongest nations had fallen. By 1940, Nazi Germany controlled much of Europe. The future appeared grim. Britain stood almost alone against Hitler's growing empire. Determined to force Britain into submission, Germany launched a massive bombing campaign known as the Blitz. Night after night, German aircraft attacked London and other major cities. Homes, factories, and historic landmarks were destroyed. Thousands of civilians lost their lives. Yet Britain refused to surrender. Led by Prime Minister Winston Churchill, the British people endured the attacks and continued fighting. The Battle of Britain became Hitler's first major defeat. For the first time, Nazi expansion had been stopped. In June 1941, Hitler made a decision that would change the course of the war. He launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion in history. More than 3 million German soldiers crossed into the Soviet Union. Initially, German forces advanced rapidly. Entire Soviet armies were surrounded and destroyed. But the vast Russian landscape, brutal winter conditions, and fierce resistance slowed the German advance. The conflict on the Eastern Front would become one of the bloodiest chapters in human history. Meanwhile, tensions were rising in the Pacific. Japan sought to expand its empire across Asia and the Pacific Ocean. On December 7, 1941, Japanese aircraft launched a surprise attack on the American naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Battleships burned. Aircraft were destroyed. More than 2,400 Americans were killed. The next day, the United States declared war on Japan. Soon after, Germany declared war on the United States. The conflict had become a truly global war. America had entered World War II. By 1942, the Axis powers appeared stronger than ever. But the tide was about to turn. In the Soviet Union, German forces became trapped in the brutal Battle of Stalingrad. For months, soldiers fought street by street, building by building. The city became a symbol of resistance. In February 1943, the German Sixth Army surrendered. It was one of the greatest defeats in Nazi history. At nearly the same time, the United States achieved a decisive victory against Japan at the Battle of Midway. These victories marked major turning points. The Axis powers were now on the defensive. On June 6, 1944, the Allies launched one of the most ambitious military operations ever attempted. Known as D-Day, more than 150,000 Allied troops crossed the English Channel and landed on the beaches of Normandy, France. Supported by thousands of ships and aircraft, they fought through heavily fortified German defenses. The cost was enormous. But the invasion succeeded. Western Europe was finally being liberated. The Allies began pushing toward Germany from the west while Soviet forces advanced from the east. Hitler's empire was collapsing. The fall of Berlin. By early 1945, Germany faced defeat on all fronts. Allied armies closed in on Berlin. Bombing raids devastated German cities. Resources were exhausted. On April 30, 1945, Adolf Hitler committed suicide in his underground bunker. Just days later, Germany surrendered unconditionally. Victory in Europe was declared on May 8, 1945. But the war was not yet over. In the Pacific, Japan continued to resist despite mounting losses. American leaders feared that an invasion of Japan could cost hundreds of thousands of lives. A new weapon had been developed. The atomic bomb. On August 6, 1945, an atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. 3 days later, a second bomb struck Nagasaki. The destruction was unlike anything the world had ever seen. Entire sections of both cities were obliterated. Tens of thousands died instantly. Faced with overwhelming devastation, Japan surrendered on September 2, 1945. World War II had finally come to an end. The war left much of Europe and Asia in ruins. More than 50 million people had lost their lives. Countless families were displaced. Entire cities had been destroyed. Yet from the devastation emerged a new world order. The United Nations was established in hopes of preventing future global conflicts. The United States and the Soviet Union emerged as superpowers. Their rivalry would soon lead to the Cold War. Even today, the lessons of World War II continue to shape international politics, military strategy, and our understanding of the human cost of war. World War II was more than a conflict between nations. It was a test of human endurance, courage, sacrifice, and survival. Its battles changed borders. Its leaders changed history. And its consequences continue to influence our world more than 80 years later. If history teaches us anything, it is that peace should never be taken for granted. Because the scars of World War II remind us of the terrible price humanity pays when war consumes. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to Epic History Vault and hit the bell icon so you never miss our next journey into history.